The best romance novels of all time. Number 1. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. A sprawling epic that takes readers across continents in the name of love. Anna Karenina is one of the longest books on this list, coming to an intimidating 800-plus pages. But those who persevere with this colossus of a novel are richly rewarded in what is considered by many to be the best romance novel of all time. And we think, one of the best books to read in a lifetime. Tolstoy tells the story of an extramarital affair and its fallout in Imperial Russian society. When Anna runs away with the handsome Count Vronsky, excitement gives way to paranoia, isolation, and regret, as we witness the unraveling of their relationship and of Anna herself. As much a cautionary tale as it is a romance novel, Anna Karenina is a richly imagined portrait of both the agonies and ecstasies of love. Number 2. Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Florentino Ariza has been waiting for 50 years for his true love to return. That's not to say he's been bored. He's passed the time by having no fewer than 622 love affairs, which he has painstakingly recorded in his notebooks. Despite his dalliances and the passing of decades, when the man who married his childhood sweetheart dies, and now elderly Florentino seizes the opportunity to declare his love once more. An astonishing exploration of devotion and reunions, and the unrealistic expectations we place on those we love. Love in the Time of Cholera doesn't just ask whether the hero will get the girl. It asks whether he should. They don't just hand out the Nobel Prize for Literature to anyone. So it's safe to say we're in good hands with Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Number 3. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. This classic fish-out-of-water tale follows Margaret, a 19-year-old girl whose life is turned upside down when her family relocates from a sleepy village to Darkshire, a rough and restless industrial town in the north of England. Margaret finds a new calling, advocating for the poor and disenfranchised, but it brings her into direct conflict with imposing mill owner John Thornton. Can the two find any common ground, or will misunderstanding keep them at odds? Heartwarming and ahead of its time, North and South isn't just a beautiful romance. It also has a lot to say on politics, gender, and religion. So one for the history buffs. 2. Number 4. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It is a truth universally acknowledged that any list of the best romance novels must be in want of at least one Jane Austen. And Pride and Prejudice is by far the English humorist's most famous story. It's a tale as old as time. Boy meets girl. Boy and girl bicker and declare their contempt for one another. Boy and girl realize over time that there is, in fact, more to one another than meets the eye. But has this realization come too late? It might now be a rom-com trope, but Pride and Prejudice is one of the oldest and greatest examples of the thin line between love and hate. Elizabeth and Darcy's romance is as honest as it is unexpected, and Austen's characters are so vividly realized and so utterly believable that you'll be gasping, cringing, and crying along with them. Number 5. Emma by Jane Austen. Austen once set out in a letter the perfect subject for a novel: 3 or 4 families in a country village. And the description fits Emma well. The glue that holds these families together is Emma Woodhouse. Clever, rich, beautiful, and utterly deluded, she's determined to meddle with the hearts of her neighbors, but sees no need to find a husband herself. The novel bends narration through the distorting lens of our protagonist, making for a genius coming-of-age story and a work of comic brilliance. No matter who plays them, in what adaptation, her characters never fail to be laugh-out-loud funny. Number 6. Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. The third and final installment in our ode to romance titan Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibility is a novel of lies, secrets, and seduction. Following 2 sisters, one wild and impulsive, the other quiet and sensible. It brilliantly portrays a world of money and status, gossip and innuendo, where rigid social convention governs the impulses of the heart. Through their parallel experiences of love and heartbreak, will these two young women learn to strike a balance between wearing your heart on your sleeve and concealing your true feelings? Number 7. The Princess Bride by William Goldman. As Goldman himself writes in the introduction, "Dollars to donuts, you've seen the movie. But if you haven't read the book that inspired the cult hit, you've missed a trick. A spoof fairy tale, a sharp satire, and a rocket-powered fantasy, all brilliantly disguised as a love story. There's absolutely nothing fluffy about The Princess Bride. In fact, though there's plenty to giggle about in the story of Buttercup and Prince Humperdinck, you might also call this novel a tightly plotted thriller. So if you're of a nervous disposition, maybe stick to fairy tales meant for kids." Number 8. Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. Reading Hardy's Tess of the D'Urbervilles is an affecting experience that will stay with you for a lifetime. Its heroine, Tess Durbeyfield, is so beautifully and sympathetically drawn that you cannot help but feel crushed as the world conspires against her, betrayed by men who exploit her, a society that casts her out, and by the callousness of her religion. As the seasons change, and Tess changes with them, it's clear that she identifies most with the natural world, and it is here that the intensity of Hardy's imagination comes into its own. His lush and evocative descriptions, metaphors, and parallels make this tragic romance novel a poetic masterpiece. Number 9. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The first and only novel by an elusive icon, Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights plunges headfirst into an exploration of the violence of doomed romance. Amid the bleak and feral atmosphere of the Yorkshire moors, the novel revolves obsessively around the tempestuous course of Cathy and Heathcliff's self-destructive love affair. A Gothic novel of intense passion, betrayal, and bitter vengeance, underpinned by the quiet beauty of Bronte's lyricism. Wuthering Heights is an iconoclastic masterpiece that has inspired filmmakers, novelists, poets, and songwriters for generations. Number 10. Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. The quintessential love story that has spawned countless retellings and inspired who knows how many writers. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, the story of two star-crossed lovers from rival houses, wrote many of the rules of tragic romance. From iconic scenes like the balcony soliloquy to legendary one-liners, "A plague o' both your houses, anyone," and the ending that defined the romantic tragedy genre, any aspiring romance connoisseur should get this one under their belt. Number 11. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. A dark, twisted tale told almost exclusively as a flashback, Rebecca follows the nameless protagonist and her speedy marriage to a mysterious but charming stranger, Maxim de Winter, whom she meets on a business excursion. Things quickly become unsettling as the protagonist learns of the troubling questions surrounding Maxim's previous wife, Rebecca, whose specter haunts their relationship. As Maxim's carefully curated image and their relationship unravels further, the protagonist falls deeper into the shadow of Rebecca's legacy. If you're one who enjoys indulging in dark romance plots with thriller or mystery elements, du Maurier's novel may be one for you. Number 12. Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. Spoiled Southern belle Scarlett O'Hara only ever had to worry about her love life until poverty threatened to wipe out her family's plantation. Doing everything she can to save their fortunes, Scarlett embarks on a series of unexpected adventures, traversing burning cities and bandit-filled forests. Despite her new priorities, Scarlett quickly finds that she cannot leave affairs of the heart behind completely, as she is torn between her beloved Ashley and the dashing but dangerous Red. A controversial presentation of Civil War-era America, Gone with the Wind explores the complexities of both romantic and platonic love. If you've seen the incomparable Vivien Leigh bring her to life on screen, it's time to meet Scarlett on the page. Number 13. The Thorn Birds by Colleen McCullough. The Thorn Birds explores the tangled web of 3 generations of one Australian outback family, carefully tracking their loves and losses over the course of 50 years. The emotional heart of the novel lies in the illicit relationship between Maggie, the daughter of the family, and Ralph, a priest in the local parish. Their attraction is dangerous, forbidden, and difficult to resist. Will they ever be together, or will the seemingly insurmountable obstacles between them keep them apart? This sweeping panorama of life in a rural sheep station from 1915 to 1969 is an Aussie cultural mainstay. It's the best-selling book in Australian history. Number 14. The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. The story of Noah and Allie is captured in 3 intertwined snapshots: their teens, their early 30s, and old age. As our mysterious elderly narrator unpacks these nesting dolls, we gradually learn about the love affair between our protagonists. The universe appears to have conspired to keep these childhood sweethearts apart, with meddling families, possessive fiancés, and World War II thrown into the mix. Will they ever find their way back together? Some might dismiss it as chick-lit, but The Notebook is a guaranteed tearjerker every time. Who would have thought the words "If you're a bird, I'm a bird" could pack such an emotional punch? Number 15. A Walk to Remember by Nicholas Sparks. Popular and outgoing class president Landon doesn't think he has much in common with the preacher's daughter Jamie until circumstance forces them together. A last-ditch effort to get a date to the high school dance leads to an unexpected romance in A Walk to Remember, Nicholas Sparks' follow-up to smash hit The Notebook. As Landon and Jamie slowly find common ground and an appreciation for one another, A Walk to Remember proves that love can be found in surprising places. It's a charming and sweet read, but be warned, it's another Sparks tearjerker. Number 16. Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. A member of a wealthy, free black family, Galen Vachin has a lot to lose when he decides to become a member of the Underground Railroad network and join the effort to free enslaved Southerners. His risky lifestyle catches up with him when, attacked and injured, he is forced to seek sanctuary in the basement of a stranger. That stranger is Hester Wyatt, a former slave. Despite agreeing to nurse Galen back to health, their clashing personalities lead Hester to wonder whether she can keep her promise, not to mention the hostile forces that have started to come looking for him. Equal parts history and romance. Number 17. Ross Poldark by Winston Graham. If you're a die-hard fan of the television phenomenon Poldark, you'll be delighted to hear that there are 12 novels to consume. A rich Cornish broth of love, rivalry, and discontent, Graham's novels conjure up the lashing rains, the wild winds, and the crashing seas of 18th century Cornwall as his plots roar along the coastline. If you start with Book 1, you'll meet Ross Poldark as he returns from war in America. A Mr. Darcy cum Robin Hood hero, he rescues an urchin girl from a brawl and employs her as his maid, an act which will alter the course of his life for the next 12 books. Number 18. Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. The best historical romance novels must all make great TV, because here's another one that inspired a super sexy series. Before it became an epic costume drama, Gabaldon's time-traveling novel introduced us to former British combat nurse Claire Randall and her roguish young love interest, Scots warrior Jamie Fraser. There's only one thing keeping this gorgeous couple apart: several centuries. On a trip to the Highlands with her husband Frank, Claire tumbles back in time to 1743 and finds herself caught between 2 very different lives and 2 very different men. If you're looking for a best-selling romance novel that's got it all: passion, intrigue, danger, and time travel, Outlander is your one. Number 19. The Long Paddle of the Sea by Isabel Allende. A recent release that's already considered vintage Allende, A Long Paddle of the Sea is suffused with a vibrant sense of time and place as it traces its story through 40 years of authoritarian rule in Spain. Allende's novel begins when pregnant widow Roser and her brother-in-law, Victor, flee fascist Spain aboard a ship chartered by the poet Pablo Neruda. Arriving in Chile, they immediately embroil themselves in a tangled web of characters connected by love and tragedy. A Long Petal of the Sea is a masterful historical romance novel, tinged with Allende's hallmark magical realism. Don't sleep on this one. Number 20. Birdsong by Sebastian Faulks. Beginning during World War I and spanning 3 generations, Sebastian Faulks' Birdsong is an epic novel about the power of war to strip everything from you, whether that be home, family, dignity, or love. With a few key couples dominating the pages in the style of Anna Karenina, we see the action through their eyes and feel their struggle to maintain hope after endless sacrifices. For those inspired by stories of love in the time of war, Birdsong evokes classics like War and Peace, wrapping wartime drama in a healthy coating of romance, intrigue, and sacrifices for the greater good. Number 21. The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. When Henry and Claire bump into one another at the local library, it's a classic meet-cute, except it's not. Because Claire and Henry have met each other before. In fact, she's known him her whole life. As it turns out, Henry's a time traveler, and Claire is his future wife. A rare genetic condition causes Henry to jump uncontrollably along the timeline of Claire's life. They decide to give things a shot after their first meeting, but despite their deep love for one another, they face lots of challenges along the way. After all, it's hard to keep up a relationship when one party is constantly dropping in and out of reality. Niffenegger's touching novel is sure to pull at your heartstrings as she leads us to consider how free will and destiny combine to determine who we end up loving. Number 22. The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. Stella loves logic. The problem is, love isn't logical. A high-flying mathematician, she's never put much thought into finding a romantic partner. But when she decides it's finally time to settle down, Stella comes up with a characteristically pragmatic plan. She'll hire someone to teach her how to do it. Enter Michael, a handsome escort who usually doesn't do repeat customers. When he agrees to give Stella lessons in love, he finds himself drawn deeper into her life. Suddenly, Stella isn't the only one who's learning. A charming and affectionate portrayal of the love life of a neurodivergent woman, The Kiss Quotient is a breath of fresh air. We doubt you'll have read a romance quite like this before. Number 23. Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Will Traynor is living a lonely life. Recently left quadriplegic by a motorcycle accident, his formerly fast-paced life has ground to a halt. Enter Lou, bubbly, funny sunshine in human form. Will's mother has hired her to help care for Will, in the hopes of lifting his perpetually dour mood, but the intrusion is not a welcome one, at least at first. Over time, the two come to understand one another a little better, though Will remains insistent on keeping Lou at arm's length, while she struggles to understand what he's so afraid of. Will she be able to break down his walls? You'll shed a tear or two, but you won't be able to resist falling in love with Me Before You. Number 24. Something Borrowed by Emily Giffin. Emily Giffin's best-selling romance novel is for every woman that's been the sidekick in a lopsided friendship. In this story, it's Rachel White, hard-working attorney, consummate good girl, and diligent maid of honor to her dazzling best friend Darcy, who happens to be marrying the man that Rachel is in love with. Yeah, that wasn't part of the plan. Well, she did set them up, but what are best friends for? Things start to spiral out of control when Rachel drunkenly confesses her feelings to Darcy's fiancé and is both delighted and devastated to hear he feels the same way. It might be a classic romance trope, but this naughty love triangle will have you on the edge of your seat to the very end. Number 25. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Lucy Hutton doesn't dislike Joshua Templeman. She doesn't reluctantly tolerate him. She hates him. And she has to sit across from his joyless, infuriatingly handsome face every day. To be fair to Joshua, The feeling's mutual. Lucy's a people pleaser, the kind who wears yellow to work, and she pushes all his buttons. Now they're up for the same promotion, and this bitter workplace rivalry is about to reach boiling point. But when tensions run high, you know what they say. There's a thin line between love and hate. Sally Thorne's The Hating Game is an unmissable treat for anyone who loves a rom-com about that undeniable spark between nemesis. Number 26. Normal People by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney was recognized as both a gifted writer and a perceptive and nuanced observer when she released her debut novel Conversations with Friends. In Normal People, she captures the zeitgeist with the same subtlety and skill. It's an intimate love story of deceptive simplicity. Marianne and Connell are two mismatched young people, unlikely friends, unlikely lovers, who share a profound understanding. However, as their small-town lives in rural Ireland are eclipsed by the heady and confusing world of student Dublin, the ways in which they mold each other reveal a universal truth about the lasting impact that one person can have on another. Dripping with longing and regret, and steered by two deeply vulnerable characters, this novel remains immensely readable, one of the best romance novels of the 21st century. Number 27. Beach Read by Emily Henry. Henry's smart and steamy page-turner, Beach Read, gave us all a sizzling slice of the summer romance we missed out on in 2020. In an effort to crack a crippling case of writer's block, January, a hopeless romantic, and Gus, who thinks happy endings are for fairy tales, don't swap numbers, but genres. Before the summer is out, January must write the next great work of literary fiction, while Gus has to pen a best-selling romance novel. Two writers, two beach huts, and plenty of wit-crack banter. Let's hope Henry is an author with a soft spot for happily ever after. Number 28. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Everything in Lily's life seems to be falling into place. She's got a new place in Boston, her own business, and she's convinced gorgeous neurosurgeon Ryle Kincaid to break his no-dating rule. Her old life in small-town Maine certainly seems a long way behind her. But as questions about her new relationship and Ryle's stubborn aversion to dating begin to overwhelm her, Lily can't help but wonder about Atlas Corrigan, her first love, and a link to the world she left behind. So when Atlas appears in Boston, everything she has with Ryle is suddenly thrown into question. This unforgettable tale is as heartbreaking as it is thrilling. Prepare yourself for a roller coaster ride of emotions. Number 29. The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory. A New York Times best-selling romance novel and a favorite among book clubs and celebrity book lovers alike. The Proposal is a fun and flirty novel about a second chance at love. Guillory kicks off with a man on one knee. It's not the usual way to start a love story, but this proposal isn't followed by happily ever after. When Nick's boyfriend asks her to spend the rest of her life with him, saying no isn't the hard part. The guy can't even spell her name right. It's doing it in front of a stadium full of disappointed baseball fans. Luckily, handsome Dr. Carlos is there to sweep her away from the frenzy and into an epic rebound of food, fun, and fantastic sex. But how serious can their glorified hookups get before someone slams on the brakes? Number 30. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Part tragic romance, part coming of age, part war trauma. Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous is a heart-wrenching, expansive look at a lot of hard truths. Little Dog, a Vietnamese refugee in the U.S. and protagonist of this semi-autobiographical novel, tries to find solace in the small comforts of his life in the working-class town of Hartford, Connecticut, but realizes that he wants to grow beyond his current horizons. The reader follows Little Dog as he chases the American dream, pursues a growing romance with a farm boy who's struggling with his family's homophobia, and questions how to be happy in the shadow of grief and trauma. A raw, poetic, and dark experience, If you enjoy a large helping of hardship and identity crisis with your romance, this might be your cup of tea.